Let's start with the Victor Wembanyama hype, right? The hype. You have heard so much hyperbole over a player that you have seen so little. And I believe this, that a lot of things that we say and some things that we do as adults is really in some sort of, I don't know if the term is insecurity or covering for our own our self-perceived flaws, right? Like it's the guy that talks about getting it all the time is probably getting it the least. People that talk about their money are the most phony in terms of how much money they have. Right? It's the old real G's work in silence like neighbor and slay. I believe that, and it's human nature. It does not make you a terrible human being. We're flawed. And one of the things we do is, especially as guys, how many beers you had? 7 beers. You're nursing 2 beers. It's okay. It's like, no, not that big a deal. We overcompensate is the word. We overcompensate. I think that's what's happening with the Victor Wembanyama hype. It's not that he's not terrific. It's not that he's not. I mean, he looks like a 2K character, an NBA 2K character. Like, have you guys? I don't know if any of your kids play NBA 2K where you can create your own player, and you could create these guys that are like 7'5" and they shoot threes and handle the ball. Like, that's Victor Wembanyama. That's Victor Wembanyama. But they've lost, look, Victor Wembanyama is not the most hyped or most productive player in Europe to come to America. Luka Doncic, at 19 years old, won a European championship, hit the game-winning shot on one of the biggest, if not the biggest, team in Europe. It was just a couple years ago. Like, no one has mentioned that except for me. Like, Luka was way more hyped and way more productive and better regarded as a player. Now, part of it is the ridiculous size, length, and human beings don't normally look like that. And I mean, you've seen the picture by now of last night when he threw out the Yankees game, the first pitch of the Yankees game, where he kind of did a 50 Cent, but he's holding the baseball, and the baseball looks like a grape in his hands. I believe that this is because most of the hype, though some of us have bought into it, and there's some recency bias, I think most of the hype is everybody knows that the drafts are snooze fest, not because the players aren't talented. There's a ton of talented players here. Right? There's the same, you got the top 3. He's going first, then probably Brandon Miller, then Scoot Henderson. Then there's a bunch of what should be really good players and interesting fits. And the hit rate's probably in the 50% variety. But, I could go probably about 10 deep on the next tier. And then there's a good tier of 10 more, and then you start getting into older players. But I believe it's many of us, and especially ESPN, overcompensating for the fact that, dude, you have 2 players that played for Overtime Elite, 2 or 3 players that played for the G League Ignite, probably 2 to 4 European players in the first round. Like, now you're getting on 10 guys that no one has seen play basketball before. And when I say no one, I know that Victor Wembanyama was on ESPN. He matched up against Scoot Henderson, right? But it was like a random nothing burger game going back almost a year ago, 9 months ago. And a game that meant nothing. And because, the older players, it's the transfer portal, we don't know. And the younger players, I mean, how many times have you seen, even Anthony Black that played at Arkansas, you seen him play twice? Because there is no buzz, because of what we've done to the amateur system, we've completely watered down the college game, propped up graduated AAU basketball, and then you have the Euro factor. The Victor Wembanyama hype is not all real. And the reason that we're using these hyperbolic terms on some level is, hey, like look at Jokic, look at Giannis. We don't want to miss on the great foreign player. But most of it, by my estimation, is nobody knows who any of these guys are. And so there's no real reason to watch. So you create kind of a hype of a TV show. Oh, my God, he's the greatest prospect ever. Dude, my first NBA draft, the first big national show I did was 2003 NBA draft in New York City. In that draft was LeBron James, the chosen one, who had played on national TV in front of sold-out arenas in the States. He was absolutely every human being who watched had seen some form of him playing in a game because the hype was ridiculous and worthwhile, and he's like the perfect NBA prospect. 6'7", 6'8", could shoot, could handle, could dribble, could jump out the gym, right? Was really bright, from Middle America, and drafted by the Cavs. There's no hype that compares to that. And then in terms of foreign player, like you got Luka, which is a couple years ago, and he was coming off a European championship where he was the best player at 19 on Real Madrid. Anybody who's telling you otherwise, they're just BSing you because they're trying to get you to watch. And they're trying to get you to watch because they're overcompensating for the fact that we know we diluted the hype of the product because college players move around so much. The young players don't play that much. And several of the young players don't actually play when anybody watches. Nobody watches the G League. Nobody watches Overtime Elite. When you say nobody, I know that Overtime Elite has like 3 million followers on social. So my son and my son's friends, they've all seen highlight clips of Amen and Asur Thompson, but they haven't watched a real game. And the games don't actually matter. The Victor Wembanyama hype is just a simple case of all of us overcompensating for one of our favorite nights in basketball, the NBA draft, and no one knowing who any of these players are.